Hello, this video is about strategies for finding main ideas in a text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a list of strategies, talk through them, and then I'm going to pull up a sample article from our book and demonstrate what this would actually look like if I was doing this sort of on my own. So, some strategies for finding main ideas in the text. The first thing is to familiarize yourself with the text. So, if you're using a specific article, such as the articles found in the College Reader, what you would do is figure out where the article starts. If it has information, which our articles typically do, about the author, make sure to note that the article starts underneath that. You're going to want to see how long the article is, so you might flip to the end. It's helpful to review those analyze questions. That helps you familiarize yourself with what the text is looking for, for you to understand. So figuring out those little pieces. Now, if there's any sort of graphs, pictures, extra text in the margins, if you notice different subheadings underneath the title where it's broken up into sections, pay attention to those things because those are all giving you some hints about how the article is constructed. Second thing to do is simply annotate, annotate, annotate. You'll remember earlier in the term when I introduced the reading process, that was the one thing that I had us practice already, is making sure to annotate the text. And keep in mind that when you're annotating, there's not a right and a wrong way. As long as you are marking on the text and making some sort of notes, that's annotating. And the idea is that, and there's all kinds of research that supports that when you're actually making some sort of interaction with what you're reading, writing notes on the text, for instance, that actually helps you, check to make sure you understand the text, because if you can't interact with it, then you're probably not understanding it. It helps with remembering what you read. So just that fact that you wrote something down there, it will help your brain kind of soak up that information so that you can recall it later. And then it's also helping you start to just have some ideas about what the text is saying, good, bad, or otherwise. Again, the more you can start to kind of figure out how to leave those notes consistently, do that, because that's going to help you just be able to identify what's actually happening within the text that you're looking at. With annotation too, that's something that just as a college student you should do. It's not something that's always going to be assigned or instructors are always going to go over or anything like that, but anytime you're giving any sort of text to read, it could be a set of directions for an assignment. It could be an announcement on Canvas. It could be an article in a book. It could be, I don't know, maybe reviewing comments online for some analysis project. But anything that you're asked to read, annotating it will help make sure that you understand it fully. Now, once you kind of annotated your original time through, then you're going to want to go back and be a little bit more intentional. And when you're looking for parts of the text, what I recommend is don't start by trying to find the thesis, then the main ideas, then the supporting details. It actually will work best if you flip that on its head and work on figuring out what the supporting details are, then going to the main ideas, and then once you have a list of main ideas, then you can step back and start figuring out what the thesis is. And so when we talk about supporting details, the reason it helps to look for those first is that they actually make up the majority of the text. So if you can identify those and kind of pull those pieces out, then what is left is often main ideas and sometimes the thesis if it's directly stated. So just as kind of a reminder, I know I gave you the handout last week about just figuring out what the terms for the different parts of a text are. I want to just kind of give you the reminder that there's the thesis, there's central ideas, there's main ideas, and then there's supporting details. So I'm saying start with the supporting details. And those are typically specific examples and research. Research is also called source material. It would be anything that is quoted or referenced from a particular place or source. Okay. When you're doing this, also sometimes it's easy to get caught up in trying to keep everything in order from the article. When you're just trying to locate main ideas, they don't have to be in order. You can just list them out as you find them. It's not something where they have to be in a particular order to be correct. So again, just keep that in mind, that it's not about making sure they're in a certain order. It's about figuring them all out, about finding them. The fifth thing, sorry, I've been doing too many videos today. The fifth thing to look for is general statements. So once you kind of have those supporting details blocked out, then you're going back through and you're seeing, okay, well, what's left in the article? Look for general statements that seem to cover some of those supporting details that you marked or that you noted, because those are often going to be the main ideas for the text. Another thing to kind of emphasize is that main ideas can pop up anywhere. There is no rule about where a professional writer has to put their thesis or where they have to put their main ideas. Sometimes they don't even state those for you. Sometimes they just hint at it a whole lot, and as a reader you have to figure it out on your own. So don't forget to kind of check those beginning and ending paragraphs. Sometimes the first and last paragraph are very much like an essay and there'll be an introduction and clear conclusion. Sometimes they may start with a main idea or they may start with examples. Sometimes the thesis might not pop up until the last paragraph of an essay. And so you don't want to ignore those beginning and ending paragraphs assuming that they don't have any main ideas. And then finally, yes, when we talk about main idea, we typically equate it with a paragraph. But reality is that main ideas can sometimes cover several paragraphs, particularly in articles where there is a lot of examples and a lot of research that's been included. And so again, it's kind of a guideline rather a hard and fast rule. So when you're looking for those main ideas, don't assume that there has to be one in every paragraph. And in fact, I'm going to show you an example from an article where it's not that way. So hopefully this gives you some ideas about how to kind of approach finding these main ideas in a text. And what I want to do now is go ahead and pull up. I'm going to pull up an article and I'm going to try and make it a little bit bigger. You may not be able to read it, but this article is actually found in the college book starting on page 126. So it's on pages 126 through 130. So you actually have this article as well. It's the exact article. I just pulled it from the New York Times, which is where the article was originally published. And so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you kind of how I would approach this if we were looking, kind of approaching it from those strategies that I just gave you, looking for main ideas in this article. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I'm doing this online, I'm going to go ahead and use my highlighter tool. If you're doing this and you have a printed out version, you have your actual book, you could use sticky notes, you can use, I would actually, if it's in my book at home, I don't know that you can probably see this on the little screen, but literally I highlight and mark directly in the text. That's the most advised way to do it. Again, I'm doing this one online, so I'm going to go ahead and use the Word document features to go ahead and annotate, but don't be afraid to kind of mark up, again, paper versions similarly. You don't have to do this online. So I'm going to use this highlighter tool. And like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start scanning through. I'm not going to do the whole article. I'm just going to do enough so that we can start to get some idea about locating the main ideas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start scanning through and seeing where my supporting details are. So I start reading my first paragraph. When it comes to taking lecture notes, Laura Gale, a sophomore, and I'm like, oh, Laura Gale, well, that's a specific person. That sounds like a specific example. And then it goes on to describe, she uses a smiley face. If the professor says did this, she does this. Later she organizes the notes. So I'm like, dang, that whole first paragraph, that's all just supporting details, right? It's a specific example. Then I keep going. I'm like, okay, then a few days before the exam, she puts it all up for sale. Again, still working with that one person, still a specific example. Next paragraph, since last fall, she uploaded her macroeconomic notes to Flashnotes. I'm like, oh, okay, well, still that example, right? It's still describing this one person and what her experience was with notes. And I'm like, okay, keep going. It's still Miss Gill. Her study guides are rated 5 stars, but so it's still describing that or that specific example, right? That single person. I'm like, okay, well, like that's great, but that's all an example. So I'm going to keep going. Then I get to my next paragraph. While borrowing, bartering, and selling class notes is nothing new, the online market is just getting organized. Oh, well, that doesn't sound like it's about Miss Gill anymore. And that's not a specific example. It's also not research. So I'm like, huh, okay, I'm leaving that sentence alone. I'm not going to worry about it right now. So I keep going. Amazon sites. Oh, okay, well, Amazon sites, nerdy notes, now those sound like specific examples again, because those are specific types of online note-taking organizations. Keep going, my next paragraph. Flash Notes starts up last fall in IFOP Camp. I'm like, Flash Notes. I keep looking through the paragraph. Huh, okay, well that's all about Flash Notes. The marketplace has annoyed some professors who bar their students from buying or selling notes. Okay, well that's just talking about some professors. That's not a specific professor. It's also not quoting anyone, so I'm just going to ignore that. And I go on, in 2010, California State University, oh, we got one of those specifics again. We got a specific example, okay? And I'm like, oh, well, some say this, some say that, okay? So these are exactly what has been saying at that college, right? Those are all reasons that professors say they're annoyed. So they're all supporting details. Then it says, still others encourage it. Okay, well that seems more general again. Then we've got a quote. Then we've got another quote. So again, we know quotes, specific details, supporting details. So we're going to go ahead and just highlighting all the supporting details. Then we go to Michael. Michael switched. Okay, well that's that single person again before. People sought his help, right? Okay, still all that example. Then we get the demand is not surprising. Okay, well that's different. That's not, right? And then I'm like, oh, but there's a specific quote that follows it. I'm going to mark that. And so you can see I'm not going through the whole article yet, but that literally is marking all my supporting details in this article. So you'll see that there's very little then that is left unmarked. If I wanted to keep going, I'm not going to do this as slow, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you real quick. So supporting. So something that you might notice when I'm doing this is that in this article, this particular author oops. Sorry, I'm trying to do this fast, but okay. So now you see all this yellow. There's a whole bunch of yellow, and that's because this article, like many articles, is a majority of supporting details, and that's what it is. There's tons of examples in this article, and there's a whole lot of inclusion of quotes and cited material from other people. So then we're going to look at finding the main ideas. I'm going to go ahead and put these in pink just so they stand out more. So I go back and I'm like, okay, so online note-taking is nothing new. Marketplace has annoyed some professors. Other professors are okay with it. I keep going and I'm like, demand for notes is not surprising. Oh, but look, just having notes shows that test performance actually gets improved. Getting down details is hard. Videotaped lectures help. Taking notes by hand, better than using a laptop. And not all students are willing to sell their notes. What I just did there, even though it was fast, is I just highlighted the main ideas of this article. One thing I'm going to tell you about this article, since I'm using it for example, it does not have a directly stated thesis statement. This article has an implied thesis, and I'll show you in a separate video how to identify the thesis. But just in terms of being able to sift through and find main ideas, this is a really good strategy when you're not used to looking for them. Now, if we were going to take this and say put it into something like a summary or into a reading chart, both of which we'll be doing in our class, then you have to actually rephrase these main ideas using your own words. So say them your way, not the way that the article has them listed. So just a heads up that that is kind of a next step, but as far as just being able to find them, this is the easiest way to find them. And then of course you can always go back and double check. We'll do discussions where you share the main ideas you found, so you'll be able to see if maybe a peer found something you didn't, or maybe there's something you disagree on that you can talk out. But like I said, just starting from finding the supporting details first, working backwards, easiest way to start actually identifying what the main ideas are. Okay, so hopefully this helps out. As always, if you have any questions, let me know.